Welcome everybody, and I see new faces today. So let's go ahead and talk about what this group is about. We are studying Spiritism, and the basis for that we choose is the teachings from Allan Kardec books. There is this series of 5 books. And the first one that we are studying with this study is the Spiritist book. And we do use this website called Kardecpedia. And the reason why we are using them is because we just make sure that we all are on the same page. There are several versions depending on the translation. As you can see, there are different languages over here. And the book is there available for free. And we did start with the book number 3, Morelos. So that's why we are meeting every Saturday at this time. And every once in a while, we have somebody talking to us, like Craig is going to talk to us today. And then the next meeting, the next Saturdays, there will be a study group. And by November the 20th, we have Geraldo Lemos talking to us. He is one of the personal friends to Chico Xavier himself. He was working with Chico Xavier for many years. So he'll be talking to us about some stories about the medium Chico Xavier. And then I put over here the next meetings agenda for the next meetings. So if you happen to miss any of those, that's okay. So for example, if you didn't have the chance to see the lecture from Luis Sergio and Livia about reincarnation and moral laws, it's okay, because you can go to Science and Spirituality Connection, and then every Saturday night or the next day, we will upload the video. Like, for example, you can find this video from Sonia, Q&A session that we had with Sonia. Okay, so before we go ahead and start, as an introduction to Craig lecture today, I thought about bringing this for us, just something for us to think about. So I'm preparing right now a presentation for this Brazilian group meeting that happens every Sunday. And I have a presentation tomorrow, and I'd like to share some of it with you. So the spirits, they speak about this greater struggle that is to overcome our own pride and our own selfishness. They speak of this struggle that is the moment prior to our new life experience here on earth, represent what that represents to us. So our new incarnation, our new beginning. So the spirits say that from the spiritual realm, we have a better understanding of our own, these 2 great opponents that we have inside of us, pride and selfishness, and the clash against oneself, the clash that we are about to experience once we incarnated. So in Allan Kardec's books, The Gospel According to Spiritism, the Spirit Emmanuel, the same spiritual guide of the medium Chico Xavier, he says the following: selfishness, the plague of all humanity, is hindering moral progress and must disappear from the earth. It has been reserved for Spiritism to make this planet ascend in the hierarchy of the worlds. So selfishness is the target at which all believers should point their arms, towards which all strength and courage should be directed. I say courage because this will be greatly needed by each individual if they are to triumph over themselves rather than triumph over others. Therefore, let each one use all their strength to combat their own selfishness, certain that this monstrous devourer of all intellects, this offspring of pride, is the cause of all miseries found in this world. It is a denial of charity, and consequently, the greatest obstacle to human happiness. So we suffer, we struggle before starting a new reincarnation because we know how easy it is to get distracted, to be out of focus due to our vanity, pride, selfishness. So we fear the high risk of failure. And that's why it's so important for us to know ourselves and seek for guidance from honest, knowledgeable, experienced, trustful people such as Craig Hogan. He's here today to talk about how we can grow in knowledge, wisdom, and spirit. Dr. Hogan, as you all may know, is the author of several books that cover spirituality, the need for self-knowledge, spiritual growth. Dr. Hogan is the director of the Center for Spiritual Understanding, a non-profit organization. He is on the boards of the Academy of Spiritual and Paranormal Studies, the Association for Evaluation and Communication of Evidence for Survival, and the American Society for Standards in Mediumship and Psychical Investigation. Not to mention, he is one of the founders of AFTERLIFE Research and Education Institute. Craig, thank you so much for making yourself available and join us today in reaching even more our studies. So welcome to the group. Thank you. I'll pass to you now. You're on mute. Craig, you are on mute. We cannot hear you.
He's muted.
I think he's having issues with his.
No, I just had to find it.
Yay!
So I look forward to speaking with you about this. What I wanted to talk with you today about how anyone can increase your knowledge and understanding, and also how you can lead happier, more contented lives. And much of this is you're familiar with because of the fact that this is an astute community. You all know much about many of the things that I'll be talking about. So I want to add to them. First, understanding this life and the next life, the importance of understanding that. You will understand this life and the next life, and it will make a difference in your life. It will make a difference in other people's lives because you can share it with them. So the first thing is to be open, to understand that you must be able to accept anything that might come to you. You will get things come to you that don't make any sense to you, or that you can't believe right now, and you must be open to those. The primary problem with most people in our society today is that they're not open, they're closed. Many of them are involved in religion, others in a scientific, materialistic view, and they're going to stay stuck where they are until they open up. So the first requirement is that we be open to anything. Anything is possible. And that we then investigate it and look at it, and if it fits with what we know to be true, then to accept it. I suggest that you read books describing what the life is in the next life. We have a tremendous amount of information now. We know much about it. And so if you will read the books, then you'll come to that understanding of what life is like in the next life, what the transition is like from this life to the next life, anything that has to do with those aspects of the next life. And they're all available to you now. There are volumes. I suggest you read Life in the World Unseen by Anthony Borgia. It's a wonderful book that will explain to you what life is like on the next plane of life. And it's very easy reading and it's enjoyable reading. So I suggest that. I suggest two of my books, Answers to Life's Enduring Questions, Reasons for What Happens to You in Your Life and Afterlife. And if you can you can take a look at those. They are listed on our website at afterlifeinstitute.org. So all you have to do is go there and you'll see those books. And I suggest that you read those because there's quite a bit of information. Altogether, there are 1,200 citations of information about this life and especially about the transition from this life and the life in the life to come. So I suggest that you read those books if you have any interest in learning about the next life that we're going to be going into. So once you've started to open yourself up, you will find that things come to you. And the reason that things come to you is because there is an entire team of people on the other side who are devoted to helping you grow. And we need to take advantage of that. We need to understand that there are people there who are helping us. We're not in this alone. And if we're open to it, if we're open to the possibility that somebody can teach us things from the other side, then the teachings will come to us. They'll come to us naturally, because that's part of the nature. That's part of a law of nature, that if we are open to it, the people, the guides, the loved ones, our helpers on the other side, those who want to help us, who are anxious to help us, will be able to get through to us. So all we have to do is be open to this knowledge, accept the possibility of what might not be true for us now, that we may not understand, and allow it to come into our lives. Then it will come to us. Then if we do have that knowledge, then our lives will be happier. The difficulty is in understanding what happy is, because many people have the wrong idea about what happy is. They talk about happy, I will be happy when, and then there's something that follows that. I will be happy when someone else changes. I will be happy when I have this in my life or that in my life. But happiness is not in the experiences that come to you. Happiness is in what you do with the experiences and how you interpret them. Things don't make you unhappy or happy. You make yourself unhappy or unhappy over things. The first thing that everyone needs to do is to learn what gives us bliss. Many people go through their whole lives without ever learning what gives them bliss. So you'll find yourself by searching for it. What is it that you enjoy? The internet is a wonderful buffet of options. People go to it for bliss. What they need to do is instead is sit down and look inside, and inside you'll find what gives you bliss. Take the time to sit down. I'd suggest this as an activity. Sit down and just mentally go through things that give you bliss and write them down. Write down a list of those things. Those things that bring you bliss are going to allow you to see where your being is, where your state of being is. Because when you understand your state of being, then you can choose to go into that state of being at any time. So if you understand what brings you bliss, then you can more likely go into a blissful state at any moment. If you don't understand it, then you'll have difficulty, because you really are going to be looking for things in your life or changes that people bring to you for your bliss, and it can't be something like that. It can't be outside of you. It has to be what's inside of you. So I suggest that as an activity, you sit down and just list the things that bring me bliss. And then after you've done that, then use those, energize yourself with them, come back to them and look at what it is that you're doing in your life, and bring things into your life that brings you bliss. Your thoughts have energy. You dwell in that energy, and you pass the energy along to others. Other people receive your thoughts. There have been studies that have been done in which people have had a person who is a sender and a person who is a receiver in two different places, and the sender would send calming thoughts to the receiver, or would send disturbing thoughts to the receiver, and feelings of anxiety and anger. And what they found was that when the person sent calming thoughts to that person, regardless of where they were, then they would feel calm. And that would come out in the measurements using electrodes that are on their fingers to determine whether they were stressed. And so then they would feel calm when somebody sent calming thoughts to them. They would feel disturbed and angry and unhappy when somebody sent the disturbing and unhappy thoughts to them. So our thoughts are received by other people, even though we don't say the words, even though we haven't communicated it explicitly. The thoughts do come to them. So every time we have an angry thought about somebody, they get that thought. Every time we have a loving thought about somebody, they get that thought. So other people are receiving our thoughts. So our relationships are based on genuine feelings, whether they're voiced or not. So that what we need to do is to try to repair the problems that we have with other people, because they know that we're having a problem with them. We can't disguise it. And so what we need to do then is that energy of love and that energy of cooperation with other people that we want to go into, as we spread that energy around, other people receive it around us. So our families and our houses receive that energy of love. They receive that energy of care, of kindness. And that energy then spreads to the neighborhood. The neighborhood receives the energy of kindness and love, and it spreads to us as a community and a country. So what we need to do then is to guard ourselves against having energies that are lower level energies that includes anger and violence and disdain and those sorts of feelings, because of the fact that even though we don't voice them, they do come to other people. So every time we enter into a situation or a thought pattern, we actually become another person. So we're becoming a person. Each time we become angry, we become the angry person. Each time we're happy, we become the happy person. It's a state of being. And we create ourselves anew each time. We're not flesh and blood and bone, as it seems that we are. The only reality is our inner self, which is not material. And you go in and out of states of being constantly every day. You go into higher states of being at the molecular or DNA level. Lower states of being have the same effect. They can make you ill. Learn to recognize when you're going into a state. Learn to feel what that's like. The inner self, who we are as the eternal self, is all that's real. The flesh and bone are not real. They're illusory. And so when we move ourselves into a state of happiness, into a state of bliss, or into a state of anger and a state of harshness, then at that time we are actually changing the only being that we are, which is the inside being. And this is the being that we carry into us, with us into the next level. So you raise your vibration and make changes in yourself at the molecular level by your thoughts. When you're experiencing uplifting things, then you are entering a state of being that is uplifting. You're, in other words, becoming the uplifting person. If you expose yourself to as many of these uplifting things as you can, then you will have an uplifting, happy life. If you dwell upon those things that are depressing or violent or angry, then you will have a depressing and violent life. And we know about the fact that when people go into the next life, they go into the place where their state of being takes them. So if the state of being of a person who passes into the next life is of a lower level, they're angry, they're violent, they have no regard for other people, then they'll go into that level in the next life. They'll be among other people who have those same sentiments. And because they have the same sentiments, then that world is not very nice. It's not a very pleasant place to live in. But they're creating that world. So we know that because of the cue from what we know about going into the next life. We know that we're doing the same thing in this life. We're creating the world that we're in based upon the emotions and the feelings that we have, based upon the way we interpret experiences. So I'm going to suggest this as a daily practice for everybody. Every day you should engage in dialogues with loved ones living in the next life. Those are loving dialogues. You should be doing that every day for a period of time, more than once if possible, but engage in dialogues with them about your love. Because your love then conveys to them. They receive that on the other side. They then are going to reciprocate. And so they'll come back to you with loving feelings and thoughts. And you understand that those loving feelings and thoughts are what take you into the state of being. So you go into a state of being because someone loves you. They are helping you to go into that state of being. You go into that state of being when you feel love towards another person. And so then you avoid the issues of depression and sadness and anxiety by going into a state of being in which you're blissful, and then you take other people into that state of being. So when you engage in a dialogue with a loved one who is now living in life in the next life, then you are putting them into a state of being in which they're more loving because they respond to it. And they are then reciprocating with more love to you. And so it's helping you to go into that state of being. The second thing that I suggest that you do is you devote time every day to meditation. If you don't meditate well, and most people don't, most people have difficulty meditating. So if you don't meditate, then spend that time in some blissful, happy, uplifting activities, that 20 minutes or that half hour a day. And what you can do is get on Google and Google near-death experiences. The real value of near-death experiences is not so much about what it tells us about the next life, because we get that information from people communicating who are living there. The real value of near-death communications is what they're teaching people about this life, because every near-death experience is teaching the person something so that they can live their life differently. By our listening to what it is that they've learned, we then are able to also be uplifted and live our lives differently as a result of that. So I suggest, even if you don't meditate, even if you can't meditate, that you spend 20 minutes, half an hour a day in which you listen to near-death experience accounts of what people go through, because they're uplifting and they're going to take you into that state of being. By doing that, what you're doing is you're adding energy to your life. You're making your state of being more blissful, more uplifted, and then you're changing yourself at the molecular level. Everyone can do it just by getting on the internet. Next thing, I suggest that you make your home into a healing place. You can have, you can develop yourself spiritually. You can come into a position in which you are blissful most of the time by making your house into a healing space. Now, we know that from experiments that when an environment is used for healing, it becomes a healing environment. Studies that have been done in which flasks of blood cells have been placed in two different flasks, and one is placed inside of what's a cage, of a little area, and some of it is left on the outside in another flask, that when the blood cells begin to deteriorate, they deteriorate at a faster rate in the outside flask if the inside flask is prayed for. So that when people pray for the inside flask, that makes a difference in it. The cells stay alive longer, they thrive longer. And so we know that praying for whatever is inside that cage then makes a real difference in it. But they've also found that over time, as they repeat the experiment, that cage then becomes a healing space. Whatever is put in there that people pray for then stays longer, and it has a greater effect upon it. So that becomes a healing space. So we can make our homes into healing spaces. In other words, we can change them. We'll actually be changing them at the material level. And we can make them into healing spaces just by doing things that are healing, by doing things that are loving, by avoiding things that are violent, or the things that are harsh, or the things that are angry, because that changes them into that negative place, and it makes them negative. So we should not dwell upon the negative, even if we're trying to avoid the negative, not to dwell on spending time thinking about it. If we do a prayer of protection, such as we had at the beginning of this session, then we do that and then go on and don't dwell upon the possibility that something might happen. So anytime we dwell upon the negative or dwell upon the lower level spirits, then they are going to be more likely to occur. They're going to be more likely to be there. So what we need to do is to make our homes, make our places of being into healing places, places in which we're blissful and uplifting. And the more that we make those into blissful, uplifting places, the more likely it is that when we come into it, we're already ahead. And then we can sit down and have dialogues with our loved ones. That increases that blissful feeling in that place, that happy feeling, the energy that's in that feeling. So we should do that every day. The next thing I suggest that we do is learn about the inner states. We're not taught, we're not brought up to think about the inner space, about what that's like. When is it that you feel blissful? When is it that you feel sad? When is it that you feel angry? And what is that inner state? What does that feel like? And if you will spend time going into that inner state and make a list of the things that make you blissful, and go through that list and feel what that's like. Feel the state of being that you're in when you're feeling those blissful things. Or go make a list of the things that you fear or that make you angry, and go through them and feel what that's like. Feel what it's like when you're doing that. And you'll begin to, after a while, begin to realize what it is that's making you feel happy, what's making you feel sad, or what you're making yourself feel sad or happy over. And once you've done that, then you will find that you're able to gauge yourself. And when you start to go into those periods of time when you feel things that are negative, then you can stop that. You halt it just by taking yourself out of it. So in other words, you go above it. So you rise above it, and then when you rise above it, you're able to go into a higher state of being. And in the higher state of being, you won't have those difficulties. You won't have the problems. But you have to realize when you're going into it. Most people don't realize it. What they do is they go through their life and they're going through one negative or positive thing after another. They're going into these states of being. They don't realize they're going into them. They dwell in them for a period of time, and they just become obsessed with mostly the negative. They become obsessed with worrying, become obsessed with anxiety. And what they don't realize is when they're going into it, what is the stage that takes them into it? And so if you can sit down and learn about the inner self, learn about who you are inside, you can learn what is taking you into those states. And then when you start to go into that state, when you start to feel yourself going into the state of worry, the state of anxiety, the state of being angry, then you can lift yourself up and go above that by taking yourself completely out of it, stopping what's going on, stopping that direction that you're going into, and then go into the blissful feelings because you decided you know what those feel like, and think about the blissful thoughts that you have listed. But knowing about what the blissful things are in our lives and what the anxiety and angry and fearful things in our lives are, then, and how we go into the states of being in which we're into the fear or the anxiety or the anger, then you can lift yourself out of it. Most people don't do that. So most people just are flotsam and jetsam, and they're just bobbing in life and not thinking about, not understanding what it is that's going on with them. So if you can take yourself into those states of being every day, just by getting used to doing that, after a while, you will immediately be able to take yourself into a blissful place, out of the place that is sad or angry or fearful, because of the fact that your inner self is going to be conditioned to that. So you'll be able to do it. Keep an inventory of memories you have. Your memories, you should have a drawer full of loving, kind, uplifting memories. And I mean that these are things that you can go to easily. You put yourself into a state of being, into a state of mind, in which you're loving and you're blissful. When you have that drawer of memories that you go to, the very act of going to those memories, knowing that you've got a whole drawer of them, you've got all of those memories, will take you into that state of being in which you're feeling blissful and happy. And then you don't have to go through each one of them individually. So if you make that drawer of blissful, happy feelings, have that list of them, go through them, and purposefully spend a little bit of time every day going through them. Then when you are in that period of time when you're going into, you feel yourself going into the fear, into the anxiety, into the difficulties, then all you have to do is go to that drawer, and you will immediately go out of it. You can lift yourself out of it, and you can go on and you can better understand it. The fear and the anxiety are not going to go away. What's going to happen is you're going to understand them. So that when you understand them, then you will more likely be able to overcome them. You'll go on without them. So have that drawer of those wonderful, blissful feelings of happiness, so that you know what that feels like, you know what the state of being is like. And then as soon as you go into it, as soon as you start to go into it, you will know that you're going into it, and it will immediately take you out of those feelings of anger and fear and anxiety, all of those feelings that you have. When you are making a choice between watching something, when you have a choice and you can engage yourself in something which is loving and kind, then do so. Avoid the things that are violent and harsh. And that means that in the things that you watch and the things that you put into your mind, that you, as much as possible, engage in loving and kind things, and avoid those things that are going to be negative. And that's difficult to do. Our world is filled with the issues today that are very negative. We have negative things happening in our politics, negative things happening in the news. And so we aren't able to really avoid them. But what we can do is, as much as possible, fill our lives with things that are loving and blissful. And that will take us into the state of being. So what you're doing then is you're changing the state of being that you're living your life in by purposefully, intentionally putting yourself into that state of being. You can go into it if you understand it. Most people don't do that. They don't understand that. They will dwell upon things, and they'll push themselves into the negative feelings, into the anxiety, into the fear. Now, what happens is, if you are a person who puts yourself into the negative feelings, into the anxiety, into the fear, you actually will change your physical being, because the physical being is only a result of our mental state. Our mental state creates the physical being. And so if you are putting yourself into the feelings of fear and anxiety and anger, then you will go into that state of being very often, very quickly. That'll simply become part of who you are. And then your body will feel the effects of that. Studies have been done of people who have multiple personality. It's a dissociative personality disorder. And what happens is that if you have a multiple personality, you change from one personality to another. And the flip happens very quickly, very often, very quickly. People they know when they're going into that state of change. They know what that feels like when they're going into it, because they know that the state of being, or being one person or another person. So what happens is, when they go into the state of being, they change physically. So someone who is diabetic in one personality, and when they change to another personality that's normal, that is not diabetic, their blood sugar changes immediately. So if you test the blood sugar of the person who is diabetic, then they will have high blood sugar. And if the person changes into the other person 5 minutes later, then you take a blood test, they will be normal. It changed the physiology. It changed their body. A person who was allergic to drinking orange juice would have one personality would change to another personality that was not allergic. And when the person was in the personality that was allergic, he would have hives all over his body, and they were very noticeable and very dramatic. When he changed into the person who was not allergic to orange juice, immediately the hives would go away. So that's something physical that you wouldn't think would change quickly. The reason is that because our state of mind changes who we are physically. We make ourselves ill, we can make ourselves well by just changing our state of mind. Another example is a man who was a combat veteran, and he was hypnotized, and he was told in his hypnotized state that a piece of molten metal from a bomb had fallen on his hand and burned it. And so when he was taken out of that state, then while they were sitting there after the hypnotic session, on his hand, a raised area started to turn red. After a while, it actually turned into a blister. And so he had a burn on his hand. And that burn didn't happen from that piece of molten metal. It happened because he thought that there was a piece of molten metal there. Why can't I get metal out? So he was thinking that it was there, and so that changed his physiology. It actually changed it. And so then what they did was they did another experiment with the same soldier. They put him into a hypnotic trance, and they said to him that his left arm had a tourniquet on it. It was drained of blood, and he had no feeling in that left arm. And so what they did was they took him out of the trance. They would then pricked his right hand, which was the normal hand, and he felt it. He winced with pain, and he bled from his finger. They pricked his left arm, which was the one that was drained of blood. He didn't feel anything. He didn't wince. There was no pain involved, and he didn't bleed. So what he did was he changed his physiology by what he was thinking. His physiology was dependent upon what he was thinking. It also happens that it can happen in problems of health problems. If you know Anita Moorjani's work, Anita Moorjani had been put into a situation in which she was in another culture than her Indian native culture, and she was stressed by it. She had the feeling like she had to be somebody that she wasn't all the time, and the stress created such problems for her. She ended up with cancer. She was on her deathbed. They didn't think that she was going to make it through the night. She had a vision, and the vision said that you are doing this to yourself. You're making yourself feel this way. If you change the way you feel about yourself, these things will go away. She then awoke, and when she awoke, she resolved that she would feel differently about it. She would not have those stresses. Within a few days, the cancer had gone away. Within a couple of weeks, she was in complete remission, and the cancer never came back. She went from death's door to complete healing just by thinking, just by feeling, I'm not going to be stressed by this. I'm not going to be dependent upon this. And the result of that was that she changed her physiology. We then become stressed, we become angry, and the stress and the anger and those feelings then will make a change in our physiology. The result of that change in our physiology is that we will feel more angry, we will feel those kinds of feelings, and our body will register them. So we change who we are. We go into a state of being. The state of being can be blissful. The state of being can be anxious. The state of being can be fearful. The state of being is anger, but it's a state of being. We are actually changing ourselves. Our bodies will register that because we're creating our bodies every moment. We then, when we go into those feelings, we're affecting other people, all the other people around us. They're becoming more angry. They realize we're angry with them. They realize that we have ill feelings toward them. So those feelings that we have are energy. Those feelings that we have are going to affect other people. So what we can do then is we can change our lives, and we can change the lives of our people around us by realizing that the feelings, the thinking, the people that we are, the self is what's important. The self is what has power. It isn't the physical body. The physical body is meaningless. And so as a result of that, we can also have an effect upon the people who are living in the next life. And we are helping them to grow by sending loving thoughts their way, by having dialogues with them. And they're helping us to grow because they reciprocate. They come back to us with those loving thoughts. And then they are growing with us. They never separate from us. Everything is only thought. It's only mind. And it's a result of that, because it's only mind. We communicate with them and we have an effect upon them just as they have an effect upon us. And what we need to do is more than anything, we need to allow our lives to unfold. We will be blissful, we will be happy if we allow our lives to unfold and we're contented with who we are, what we have, and where we're going. The more fearful we are, the more we desire things that are not attainable, then the more we will put ourselves into a stressful situation, and that will affect us in our body and in our minds, and that will affect the people around us. So allowing our lives to unfold is very important for us spiritually during this period of time when we're in Earth School. We're given guidance. Our guides, our loved ones, and our souls are giving us guidance continually. And they will make a difference for us, and they will change our lives. They will change us to be physically what we want to be. They will help us to have bliss, to have happy lives, and to grow spiritually so that we have love for other people. But we have to allow our lives to unfold. The harder that we work at trying to make our lives differently than what they are unfolding to be, the more we're going to get ourselves into difficulties. The final thing I want to say is that as much as possible, if you can become part of groups, anything in which you can involve yourself with other people, it's very important. That interpersonal contact makes a difference for us at the molecular level, at the soul level. And so if you come into groups, into the Zoom groups, for instance, that are online, or this group that's online, and meet regularly with them, that makes a difference for you in your life. If you don't have a group in your life other than the groups that you have, and you would like to have a group that was focused on something different, then start a group, start a meetup group. But the interpersonal activity, getting together with other people, dialoguing with other people is very important in our lives. It is something that we can make a choice to do. And if we do that, then it will elevate us. It'll elevate the people who are around us. And then that will make a difference. So I want to stop and ask if there are any questions before we go too far. We're going to run out of time.
Let me see if we have, I was paying attention to you. I didn't even see, I didn't check. So far, we do not, no, we do not, we don't have any questions so far. Lots of good comments about what you just said, and several comments in agreement, in alignment with what you said. But so far, no questions.
Okay, so let me.
Sorry, Craig.
Yeah.
Craig, I've got a question.
Yeah.
The statements you have made are superb, wonderful, and some of it's new to me, but much of it is said in Anthony Bourdieu's books and other automatic writing. When you have this, have all of these statements been revealed to you, or have you learned them from the teaching of others, or is it a mixture?
It's a mixture. It's a mixture. So what will happen is that I will read many of these things. I study carefully as much as I can about the messages we've gotten from people living on the next plane of life. So I do a lot of that, but then I also do a lot of meditation. I do a lot of time in which I do receive interpretations of what it is that I'm getting through those people from the other side of life. So it's a mixture of the two of them.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I
Sure.
put a note in the chat saying that if anybody wants Anthony Bourdieu, I have a copy and can mail it out to anybody that would be wanted to send me their email. And they can put their email in the chat, or they can email me directly, just like I said in the chat. Thank you very much, Craig. This is most uplifting.
Good.
And I'm delighted to hear this.
Thank you, Josh.
Delightful.
Yes, indeed. Annie has a question, it seems like. Annie, go ahead.
Hi, Annie.
You're on mute, Annie.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Annie's in our Wednesday night group.
Yes, I am. And I love our group, and I love you, and you have the happiest, loving vibes that you send out through Zoom. And I love your book so much. It's awesome. So I have a couple of questions for you. The first one is, what is it that personally brings you bliss?
Yeah, I'm blissful when I see other people being happy. I have a burden when I see people being sad and unhappy. And when I watch people become joyful, that just brings a bliss to my life. That, that's what I want more than anything in the world, is to see people be happy. I've a burden for humankind. I have a burden for the whole world. And I do know that we can make such a difference in the world if we can just get the message out to people, if they can just understand what we know to be true now. I'm hoping that what happens on Monday, when the Bigelow Prize is given, that will start to make a change in humankind. And I expect that there will be a flurry of activity, and that then is going to make a difference. We'll be able to get to more people because there'll be press releases, there'll be media. And as a result of that, then we're going to be able to bring other people into the fold, bring other people into understanding this. So I'm expecting wonderful things to happen. That will bring me great bliss. You talk about being happy. That's going to be a real high for me. If we can do that, if we can manage to get to other people and make that change in their lives. What brings me bliss, I listen to the NDEs, the near-death experiences, and people discover things, they learn things in them, and as they're describing them, and they're saying, I understand this now. I was given this message from this being that was there, and when they do that for me, it brings me to tears, because it's such a wonderful experience to see people learning these things and discovering and being uplifted by what it is that they learn. And so the more that we can do that, the happier I will be.
Okay. My next question is, I don't ever watch the news and I rarely watch television. I'm very, very careful of what I let enter into my mind, my house, etc. Do you do the same thing, or what are your thoughts on that?
No, but I do avoid politics. I do watch the YouTubes. We watch historical YouTubes about the royal family and these kinds of things, and so we occupy our time with those things instead of television. I don't have television, but I do go to movies. For instance, we went to a movie just last night, and it was a very enjoyable fantasy movie. And in the fantasy movie, they had some violence. And it's one of those things that you just about can't avoid, if you want to enjoy those kinds of things. And so when I do have those kinds of things in my life, I will take pains to brush them off afterwards, to actually spend time in realizing that this is fiction, this is not true, these are not part of my life, and so I do brush them off. But most of the time, I don't even have a television. I just watch YouTubes that are uplifting, that have to do with history, near-death experiences. Watch the mental mediums, and just fill my life with those things. The more we fill our lives with those things, the more we're uplifted, and we change ourselves at the molecular level. We become a different person. We actually go into a state of being. We are a different being then, different entity in life. And all we have to do to bring ourselves into those periods is to bring things into our life that are full of bliss and happiness.
Absolutely. And I have one last question. I'm going to be selfish today. Sorry. But I was waiting all week for this. So my last question is, I agree with you with kind of letting your life flow and not trying to make things happen, etc., that kind of thing. What about though, when people want to manifest something, they want something, like example, I'd like to manifest living in a warmer country than Canada. Is that something that's a positive thing to do for people, or should you just kind of let things work out the way they're supposed to work out in your life? And if I have to stay in this cold country, then that's the way it is.
Do what brings you bliss. Follow your bliss. Follow your bliss.
Okay.
And then if you follow your bliss, whatever it is that you are most love, most enjoy, and when your bliss becomes more in line with your spiritual self, so your bliss becomes loving. When loving things happen, your bliss becomes when kind things happen. So then your life is filled with those. Then your bliss then will unfold by itself. You will become more loving. You will become kinder. If you want a new Cadillac, then you do affirmations and say, I'm going to get a new Cadillac. I'm going to get a new Cadillac. Then that's really meaningless. Those are just words. You're not coming into a state of being in which you have a Cadillac. You will come into the state of being if you desire something, if you want something in your life, then you can indicate that you would like to have this in your life, and then allow it to happen or not happen, and then live happily with whatever it is you have. So if you lived in a cold climate like we do in Illinois, then and you wish you were in Florida, then you just learn to say, well, I'm in Illinois and this is fine, and I'm going to enjoy my life in Illinois. The person who runs into problems with affirmations is that they then begin to rely upon them. So they say, I need money. I've got to pay the rent. I don't know, I've got to get money, and so I'm going to affirmation. I'm going to get money today. Today I'm going to get money. I'm going to get money today. And instead of what they should be doing, which is stopping whatever it is that they're paying for that they can do without, and earning more money or spending time in overtime to get more money. I mean, the affirmations then can't dominate a person's life. If your bliss is in something, then that more of that's going to come your way. And so then if your bliss is in the idea that you would like to be in a warmer climate, then the bliss is very likely going to come your way. If it doesn't, you're just happy with wherever you are. That's the difference.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for answering my questions, and I'll see you on Wednesday night.
Yeah. Okay, Annie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. The next online here is Gabriel. Would you like to ask your question, please?
Yeah, I just want to make, I may have a few tears, but I'm okay with that. I just want to make a comment how absolutely perfect it was that instead of sitting here, I was going to meditate. I lost my canine companion yesterday. She was unconditional love and 4 legs, and I think I've learned so much from her. Being in that state of love, she taught me every single day, love, to feel love is the most important thing. So I felt her company yesterday and her companionship. After crying at the vet, crying my eyes out, I got in my car, and then I started laughing, enjoying her company. But I'm still going through this, in and out of that bliss state, and then complete despair and loss. And so I came across, the link, and I saw, Craig Hogan. I remember him from a thing I participated with you, and said, let me just check it out. I know it's late. Maybe I like it, maybe I won't. And it was just, I was sitting here closing my eyes, and I could feel her coming up to me. And just, just putting her snout on my knee. And, everything that you mentioned, you have a way to put it out that it's like, oh, okay, I get it. I get it. Sometimes we hear something so many times for so many years, and, I get a glimpse of it and I understand it within me. And then today it was just perfect, that I decided, oh, let me just go. And I feel so much too, like my family, I speak with them all the time. And I feel, I feel my uncles and my aunts, I can feel their love flowing back and forth. And it is really, it is really true. I feel I have a connection and somehow a duty, a responsibility to for all of us to stay in that flow, to learn, to pay attention to now how incredible everything is. And so I do have, I don't know if it's a question though, you had mentioned that, this world is not real, it's illusory. And yet sometimes, actually quite often, I look at the magnificence of this creation. And I look how we developed, from a little cell division, and what it took, the engineered bodies that we live in, that this consciousness resides in while we are here, and I go, what is illusory? It's temporary. And yet it is something to be honored as well. It is something to be respected, admired, and appreciated. And, so I just want to say this is how I feel it, how I experience it. This
Mhm.
life is incredible. This physical vehicle is ingeniously engineered. I mean, it's stunning, it's mind boggling. And then, you know, sometimes I think to just be here and appreciate what I have, that breath is running
Mhm.
through me, that I am here, you know, that I can feel that connection, that I'm in this reality and there is an even greater reality. And, you know, just to feel just so, I don't know, so grateful, just so, I don't even have words, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah. This world that we live in is illusory in the sense that it's like vapor, that it's not real. It is not material. In other words, it's not there isn't a world of objects outside of us that would go on if we weren't here. Everything is in our universal intellect. It's in our consciousness. So what we're doing is we're having experiences that we shouldn't think are outside of us. We shouldn't think that they are things that would go on without us, without human beings being here. They are happening in our consciousness. Our greater reality is that they are conscious activities. So it's not illusory in the sense that it's vaporous. It is only in the fact that it's mental, that it's consciousness. So I agree with you entirely. Um, as far as your pet is concerned, the fact that your pet comes to you is because you're open. Being open is so important. It's so important. If you're open to it, if you're open to the visitations from your loved ones, open to your visitations from your pets, then they will come to you. It will happen. And you'll find more of these things happening. You'll find more of your bliss happening in those things that are good for you, that are to your benefit, if you're open to them. If you're closed by religion, closed by a belief in science, closed by your own anxieties, then it'll be more difficult for these things to come to you. They have to unfold to you. They have to come naturally to you, and they will if you're just open to them, as you're open to your pets coming to you. And it's wonderful that your pet will come to you regularly. And all of our loved ones come to us, and they stay with us. So soon after their transition, then they will stay around us and they'll communicate with us. And they then, even if they've gone on to their next activities, all we have to do is think of them. They get our thoughts wherever they are. We're just one thought away from them. And so when we think of them, they get our thoughts where they are. They communicate with us from where they are, and they may come down onto the earth plane to spend time with us, so that there's something happening. And your pet will come down at any time you ask. And you'll also be able to communicate telepathically. So you will be able to get messages from your pet, both now and when you have a reunion. You will openly communicate with your pet then, when you have your reunion, and that's a surprise to people when they get over there into the next plane of life. They don't realize that animals will talk to them, and especially their own animals. So that's wonderful. That's wonderful that you're open to that.
You know, I remember when I was a little kid, I grew up in an atheist household, but my grandma prayed to Jesus every night. And she wasn't preachy or anything, but I could feel, even as a child, her sincerity. And she gave me a picture of an angel, you know, bringing a child up to the heavens.
Mm-hmm.
And there were sheep and everything waiting. And as a child, I was thinking, I know animals can talk. I just knew that internally, you know. And yes, she definitely, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
she had the most soulful eyes looking directly into my heart. And she spoke to me all the time. And, you know, I know she will be back. It's just
Mm-hmm.
bridging that, you know, that reality that came so unexpected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh, that, you know,
That is difficult.
full of shock.
That is difficult. Yeah.
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 Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I think we had Mike had his hand raised. Mike, would you like to comment anything or ask a question?
I did, Anna, but I'm mindful of time. I don't know how much more time we
That's
have.
okay. We are on until 4:15. I mean, my time. We still have 6 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, in 6 minutes, Craig, could you talk a little bit more about Earth School?
Yeah, you're right. It is. It will take a long time.
Yeah, so maybe we don't have enough time.
No,
I was
please.
hoping it's an intriguing concept, and I think it's important. But I'm sorry to put you on the spot because I know
No,
6
not at
minutes
all.
isn't much.
No, not at all. I didn't mean to implicate. I didn't mean to imply that I was on the spot. There's just so much I want to tell you. There's so much I want to say about it.
And a lot we want to hear too. So
we have chosen to come into a circumstance, into a state of being in which we are having these experiences with each other. And the relationships are very important. So it's experiences with other people. We've chosen to have these experiences in what I'm terming Earth School, because we're having the experiences to learn lessons, to learn how to have greater love and compassion, and to enjoy the experiences that we have while we're here. And so what Earth School then is a state of mind. Our souls chose to have us develop in Earth School. Our souls understand the whole picture. They were part of the pre-birth planning. And so then our souls made the decisions about who we live with and what would happen in our lives. And then we grew from being little children into understanding how to navigate through this life, and then coming into a period when we could develop spiritually at that age level. And then we started to be able to make changes. When we were children and we were reared in this life, we learned all the things the society taught us, and our families taught us, and our schools and our churches taught us. And so we were living someone else's life. We were not living our life yet. And so when we came into the period of time when we were able to make decisions and to become all of the person whom we wanted to become, then we were given the free will and the opportunity and the intellect to be able to make the decisions to be anyone we wanted to be. And so at that point, then we were able to start experiencing the plan that we made for our lives, that our souls made for our lives. And that's when we started to grow, we started to learn, we started to become more loving and compassionate, and we started to learn how to enjoy life without being fearful of it. And so Earth School is a period of time when we're learning these lessons in ways we couldn't possibly learn in another situation. We are in a crucible. This is a period of time when there are people who are evil, people who are loving, mixed together. And we then have a choice, because then we can become evil or we can become loving. And so then we can develop from who we are in Earth School into the person that we will be. That learning then carries on with us. We stay individuals throughout our eternity, throughout our lives, after this life. But our higher selves, the souls are integral with. The higher selves then are learning, are gathering these things. We're developing by having the experiences that we have in Earth School. And we're becoming all that we can become in ways that we couldn't become if we weren't coming into a situation in which we were learning from other people, from the circumstances that we're in. And so that's why Earth School is set up the way it is. That's what we're learning, and that's how we're developing as human beings and as a higher level consciousness. Does that make sense?
yeah, it does to me, Craig. I think it's going to take a lot for us to internalize that. You said something about earlier about allowing our lives to unfold. I take it that's part of our school, is just kind of trusting in that plan that our souls have and that purpose that we're ultimately here kind of to discover, is the word I like. We're discovering it as we go, I think, but I'm
Yes.
really interested in how you explain it, because you did say it. I wish I could say what I think the way you say what it is, because you can articulate it so much better than I. Thank you.
That's the effortless life. So we should have effortless lives. In other words, then that doesn't mean that we don't plan for the future. We do. You know, we plan for retirement. We do we save money. We do those things. But the effortless life means that we are not trying to be something that is something which is impossible for us to be. So that if we're just striving and working and trying to be this thing that we're not, and we're aching with the efforts that we're making, then what we're doing is we're sabotaging what we could be. We're standing in the way of it. We're blocking the way that we could become. And so what we need to do is we need to follow our bliss, have the effortless life, do all of the things we have to do to plan for our lives and to have good incomes and all the things that have to happen in life, but then allow the things to unfold, realizing that they are in our best interest, that they're part of the plan, that we then are going to evolve and develop based upon what happens in our lives, and be confident in that, and so that we don't need to worry about it. You know, there's don't take life too seriously, because the things that are happening for us are going to be happening for us. We have our own exit points. So we have 2 or 3 exit points. And those are the points at which we then may exit, depending on what our soul and our guides decide is appropriate, that we've done what we needed to do and would go on in that exit point. That's going to happen to us regardless of what we do in our lives. And we just allow that to unfold, allow it to happen. When it happens, it happens. Being happy contented with our lives. We should be happy and contented with what we have. And if we're happy and contented, then we will live blissful lives, regardless of what the circumstances are that we have in our lives. So that's the unfolding. That's the having bliss in whatever circumstances we're in.
And I know we don't have much time left, but I just wanted to say thank you. And also, it sounds like you're saying there's a real difference between bliss and happiness. Happiness is an emotion that's based on a certain situation I'm in. I'm having a drink right now, a cup of tea that I'm really enjoying. It's making me happy, but that tea will be done and that happiness will be over. But the bliss you're talking about is much different.
Right. Bliss is it's a state of being. So happiness is, as you say, if you have happiness for any reason, if there's a reason for the happiness, then it's just another form of misery, because then you've got to have whatever that is, and and you're worried about it going away, and you know, how am I going to get more of it, and so that's just another form of misery. Any happiness which is based upon something that I must have, and then that is not the kind of happiness that we're talking about. Bliss means whatever the circumstances are. You know, if I lose my job, then well, that gives me some opportunities to do something different with my life. You know, I might be able to go someplace else. Now, having said that, in Earth School, there are circumstances that people are in that we simply don't understand. There's a picture I've seen of a woman, I believe in the Sudan. She's starving. She has a baby who's starving. The baby can't get milk from her because she's starving. The baby is going to starve, and then she's going to starve. And they're both going to it's a result of that transition. And so when we talk about, you know, following our bliss, how much bliss can she have in her life? She's chosen that, even though it's difficult for us to understand that. She's chosen that path, and that path is going to play out for her. And so following our bliss doesn't necessarily mean that we are going to always be in circumstances that are going to make us blissful. Sometimes we're going to have problems, we're going to have sadness, we're going to have grief, we're going to have all of these issues that are in our lives. But as we allow them to unfold, they're unfolding because this is the plan. This is what we planned. And if we just allow it to unfold, be blissful in whatever happens. I lose my job. Okay, I'm going to find another job. I'm going to, I'm going to do something else with my life. My loved one passes into the next life. Well, I'm going to be grieving. There's nothing that's going to keep me from grieving. I may know everything I know about the next life, and I'm still going to grieve because she's not here with me anymore. But at the same time, I can say, and I'm not going to allow the grief to absorb me. I'm not going to allow it to overcome me. I'm going to live with the grief, but I'm going to have a blissful life in spite of that, knowing that we can have the reunion later on. But there are things that are going to happen that are going to make us unhappy. But if we're relying upon any other person or any other thing to make us happy, then we're destined to be miserable. That's what it is.
Very good. So we are on top. Actually, we passed. Sorry about that, Craig, but I do have two news for you. One is bad and another one, I don't know, two news. But one is the good one. You've done a wonderful talk to us. Thank you so much. I'm sure everybody is very well pleased. And the other news is I don't think you're done with us yet, because what you just said about Earth School, oh my gosh, is really such a wonderful topic for next time. So please accept our invite for our invitation for a next meeting with us.
I always enjoy it. So anytime.
I do love everything you said, especially because it's also connected. It's so intrinsically connected to each other. And especially when you talk about the thoughts, people do not really realize that our thoughts is like a Wi-Fi, a router, right? We can connect to everybody, not only us over here, the incarnated, but also the spiritual and all the spirits around us. So such a wonderful lecture. I really appreciate. Thank you so much, and thank you all for connecting to us. Do I have a volunteer? Annie, would you please volunteer to say a closing prayer for us? Would you? No.
No. Okay. Okay. I am definitely not
simple and
Dr. Craig Hogan. So this isn't going to come out like his effortless things do. Okay, so we'll have a closing prayer. All right. I will say Spirit. Just Spirit, we just thank you so much for this afternoon, and thank you so much for Dr. Craig Hogan and for the love that he has for everyone, and for the amazing way he has of talking to people, and just his loving energy. Thank you so much for Anna, and for allowing her to have this group that we have every Saturday. And we just thank you so much for this day, and thank you for everyone who's in this group. And we ask that you will be with us for the week, and you will protect us and love us, and that we will meet again next week. And we just thank you so much for everything in our lives. Thank you. Amen.
Thank you so much.
How was that?
Thank
Good?
you. Excellent. Yeah. Good job. Thank you so much, folks. And I'll see you next Saturday then. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Craig.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks, Craig. Lovely.